first and only real browser-based load testing tool. LoadView offers no-code scripting to easily navigate your website. This script is uploaded to the LoadView cloud and run in real browsers from around the world, giving you perfect insight into your website's performance under load. Know your website's capacity limits and ensure exceptional performance. Sign up for a free trial at loadview-testing.com and start testing today.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's MAGA Monday.
Hitting. Several times over this weekend, I was just rubbing my hands with glee. In India. And so she goes there. Unfortunately, she appears to have forgotten that she has a history of insane remarks attacking Indian people. And they have not forgotten. She attempted to delete some of them right before the junket. And the one other thing I would add here about her personal motivation is Laura recently got engaged to what she describes as a lovely young man in some depositions, a guy who's outside of politics. But she brought him. And I think, she said she's going to the Taj Mahal. I think this was sort of, I'm going to take a trip with my fiance, get some beautiful trips in front of this monument to love, obviously built by a Muslim, so there's some irony there. But it all kind of blows up in her face.
Yeah, it seems like she was getting a junket, honestly. A paid-for junket to go to India to, basically do a pre-moon. And so she did take a picture from the Taj Mahal. It's online if people want to see about it. I'm going to get to the place, the clip where it blows up in her face because it's delicious. But I think people are kind of losing some sort of news here. So I frantically tried to watch all 48 minutes and 54 seconds of this conference, which Loomer herself posted because she was getting killed in the comments, and so she's like, well, it's all taken out of context, here's the full comments, And if you just listen to it, and I did on 2.0 speed for a while, I didn't make it through, but whatever. I can't do it all. The first 7 minutes or so, or if you just saw it and listened to it, you'd be like, this is totally batshit crazy. So she's asked about her proximity and relationship to Donald Trump. And she's like, well, we talk on the phone a fair bit. And the hosts are like, well, what do you mean by a fair bit? And she says she spoke to Trump on the phone an hour before she took the stage. That Donald Trump wished everyone well and that he might, visit India soon. Then they said, well, wait a second. How often are you speaking to him? She said she spoke to him 3 times in the past week. 3 times. The president is... We're at war. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
Do you believe it?
I believe her. I think the administration's actions recently certainly suggest that Trump is taking calls from people like Loomer. And we also know that, Trump's phone is pretty wide open. There's been some reporting over the weekend that pretty much anyone with the number can call him. And then
तो guys यार ये तो चलता रहेगा चलिए रियल वीडियो देखते हैं.
Good afternoon. She calls herself a very proud Islamophobe. Her critics call her racist. US President Donald Trump calls her a patriot. In fact, the grapevine in the United States is there are people who've been removed from the administration based on her comments and criticism. And even before she landed in India, Laura Loomer is in the eye of a storm over some of her posts. Some that have been deleted, some that remain. We'll talk about that in greater detail over the course of this conversation. Preeti and I have some questions, but before that, Laura, I believe you have a big announcement to make.
Yes, I do have an announcement to make. Namaste, by the way. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time in India. I just spoke to President Trump on the phone about an hour or so ago, actually, and I wanted to read you exactly what he said to me. He said, I love India. Please let them know I love India, I love Modi, and I love the Indian people. He said, Prime Minister Modi is a fantastic leader and a good friend of mine, and please let the people of India know that I will be coming to India someday soon for another visit. Yeah.
this ads, guys. No.
अगर आप बिजनेस कर रहे हो तो अगला 1 मिनट आपका ईगो हट कर देगा, तो कमजोर दिल वाले ना देखें। भारत का व्यापारी खुद को समझता है बिजनेस का मालिक, पर मालिक नहीं है। या तो वो है रजनीकांत, या है रामू काका, या है चौकीदार। अब आप पूछोगे ये क्या होता है? रजनीकांत तो ये होता है कि बिजनेस के सारे काम कौन करेगा? मैं। सेल मैं करूं, परचेज मैं करूं, बैंक में जाऊं, सीए से बात मैं करूंगा, कस्टमर को मैं मनाऊंगा, पैसे लेके मैं आऊंगा, अत्र तत्र सर्वत्र मैं ही रजनीकांत। सेकंड बिजनेसमैन होता है रामू काका। वो अपने एम्प्लॉय के ही एम्प्लॉय होते हैं। नॉर्मली एम्प्लॉय का काम होता है आपकी काम में हाथ बटाना, पर ये लोग एम्प्लॉय के काम में हाथ बटाते रहते हैं। एम्प्लॉय का काम होता है आपका टाइम बचाए, पर वो आपका टाइम खाता रहता है। एम्प्लॉय का काम होता है आपको 2 पैसे कमा के दे, पर आप पैसे कमा के एम्प्लॉय को तनख्वाह में दे देते हो। आप एम्प्लॉय को काम देते हो, ट्रेनिंग देते हो, पीछे पड़ते हो, काम करने के पैसे देते हो, और लास्ट में काम खुद ही करते हो। इसको कहते हैं रामू काका। कुछ है चौकीदार, वो कहते हैं भाई साहब मेरे ऑफिस में काम तभी होता है जब मैं जाके गल्ले पे बैठूं या मेरी ऑफिस में चेयर पे बैठूं। अगर मैं नहीं होगा पीछे से कुछ नहीं होगा, मुझे मेरे आदमियों की चौकीदारी करनी पड़ती है, मालिक तो मैं हूं नहीं। इन तीनों में से किसी स्टेज पर अगर आप खुद को महसूस करते हो तो रुको, अगले 1 मिनट में सॉल्यूशन मिलेगा। और आपको लगता है सब चंगा सी, तो आगे बढ़िए सर, आपको भविष्य के लिए बेस्ट ऑफ लक। तो पहली बात आपको सुकून की बता दूं कि आप अकेले नहीं हो। 90% भारत के व्यापारी ऐसे ही हैं। एम्प्लॉय डिपार्टमेंट में हाल ऐसा है, ढंग के लोग मिल नहीं रहे। जो लोग मिल रहे हैं वो काम नहीं कर रहे, और जो काम कर रहे हैं वो छोड़ के जाने की धमकी देते हैं, और जो लोग छोड़ के जाते हैं।
How often do you speak to the president?
This week I've spoken to him about 3 times, so often, right? Sometimes I go to DC and I have meetings with him at the White House. Occasionally I speak to him on the phone, just depends. But I speak to the president quite often.
Speed dial, WhatsApp, messages.
No WhatsApp, no.
What's the conversation like with the president, and especially at this time when there's a war that's on?
Well, look, I consider myself to be a Trump loyalist, and one of the things that makes our friendship and our relationship so unique is that I feel that the president can trust me to always give him advice on who's being loyal and who's being disloyal, and I spend a lot of time as an investigative reporter doing research into people who work in the administration who may be undermining his agenda or undermining the America First agenda. And, we talk about a lot of different things, but anytime I speak to the president, it's constructive. I'm giving him information that is going to be beneficial to him, helping him identify bad actors in the country, bad actors in his administration, informing him of people who are bad-mouthing him, and also making him aware of issues pertinent to the base.
Laura, if I may, you seem to be a loyalty enforcer where President Trump is concerned, yet you don't hold any position in the office.
Actually, guys, अगर आप देखने चाहे तो it's very symbolic and it's very encouraging कि वो Mr. Trump as a youth, वो भी लड़की woman वो आगे कर रहे हैं and saying कि she advises Mr. Trump, Mr. President Trump. So that's a big thing.
Is that what you aspire to? One day be maybe press secretary, senior advisor, because clearly you have his ear more than anybody else in his office, it seems.
Well, look, however the president would want me to serve, it would be an honor, and I'd be happy to serve the president in any capacity. I think that Caroline Leavitt is doing a fantastic job as the press secretary for President Trump, but someday, yes, it would be an honor and a pleasure to work in the administration in a formal capacity. But right now, I'm on the outside. And, the thing is when you work in Washington, D.C., or you work for the federal government, or you work in the White House, you have to be a little bit more diplomatic about the way you say things and how you speak to people and how you speak about people. And I think that one of my biggest strengths is that I'm not on the inside, I'm on the outside, and I'm able to advise from the outside looking in, which allows me to not have to self-censor, and I can, deliver blows and be a little bit harsher and more direct and more blunt in my speech to enact change.
You're saying you're blocked by his office there, but
Some, yeah.
But does it help your cause? Because those who you recommend need to leave his office or be fired are actually do so. So the word is that Laura Loomer actually has a purge list, And I was actually looking at Twitter right now, and what's really going on is, can you ask who's on Laura's list next?
Well, look, there's a lot of different people in the administration who I'm investigating and looking into, but you'll have to follow me on social media to see. But one of the areas that I focus on most is national security. And I'm here today to speak about Islamic terrorism. I'm going to deliver my remarks shortly. I've prepared a speech, but you can't have people who sympathize with Islamic Jihad serving in an administration. And unfortunately, what we've seen happen is there's a lot of these holdovers, right? Holdovers from the Obama administration, holdovers from the Biden administration, who have these sympathies to Islamic jihadists, or they're communists, or they are sympathetic to radical left anti-American ideologies. And when you have over 40,000 employees working in the federal government, you're not going to be able to have eyes on every single person at every single time. And so I actually set up a tip line on my website where people in the federal government can submit tips. And then we're able to monitor people and root out bad actors. And this has resulted in several jihadist sympathizers losing their positions in the Trump administration.
So when you talk about the president's war on terror, or something that you cover closely and look at very closely, help us understand this. If the president is waging a war, for example, on Iran, so that they don't get a nuclear bomb, how is he so close to Pakistan, which is the state sponsor of radical Islamist terror? He calls Asim Munir, who's a radical Islamist, his favorite field marshal, and they're cozying up to Pakistan so much in his second tenure.
Look, as a supporter of the president's, I've also been very outspoken in my criticism of the administration cozying up to Islamic nations. I made news several months ago by being very critical about his travels to Qatar and travels to the Middle East. And I agree. I think that Pakistan's biggest export to the entire world is Islamic terrorism. And I don't think that we should be cozying up to the Pakistani government or Pakistan at all, given the fact that it's an openly jihadist and pro-Sharia government. And when you look at all of the Islamic terror attacks that are happening around the world, anytime India is attacked by Islamic terrorists, anytime the UK is attacked by Islamic terrorists, you look at this Islamic takeover of the United Kingdom. They now have their Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who is a Pakistani radical. You have Sadiq Khan, who is the jihadist mayor of London, who's also Pakistani. All of the terror around the world, especially the terrorism happening in the West, whether it be in Europe or the United States. We just saw last week a Pakistani national by the name of Asif Mirchan was recruited by the Iranian regime, and he was convicted in the United States for plotting to assassinate President Trump. One thing is clear. All of the terrorism, for the most part, largely, is coming from Pakistan. Pakistan is not sending their best. But at the end of the day, it's Pakistan, so I don't really know if they have a best.
No, true.
I don't know. I don't know if Pakistan has a best.
Well, Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad. The biggest terror attack that took place on the United States of America, 9/11. The perpetrators were, trained, armed by Pakistan, hiding, Osama bin Laden hiding in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
Even now, look at these images. So in India today, we have all these covers. Jihad against the world, there's a Pakistan connection. Osama bin Laden, there's a Pakistan connection. In his first tenure, President Trump says Pakistan has looted America, $33 billion, or what's to that effect. In his second tenure, there's some conversation around cryptocurrency, there's some conversation about a mineral deal or whatever else. How does one explain that? Have you asked him this?
Look, I've had conversations with the president about Islamic terror and made it very clear that I would prefer to not see Arab leaders, Islamic leaders in the Oval Office for meetings, but he's the president of the United States, and I can't tell the president what to do. President Trump has to be diplomatic, and he's going to have to meet with world leaders and representatives from all around the world, and he played a very pivotal role in helping to de-escalate the conflict last year between India and Pakistan. And I think that President Trump is going to do what President Trump wants to do. The biggest mistake anybody could make is telling President Trump what to do or what he should or shouldn't be doing. I voted for President Trump. I believe in President Trump, and I believe that he is the best leader for our country and really the best leader to lead the entire world in this direction of peace through strength.
But Laura, moving away from Pakistan, let's talk about the war. And I'm very curious because we speak about Islamic terror and you're speaking about Pakistan, but your allies, and you call yourself a dyed-in-wool Trump loyalist. Your allies today in this war are the Gulf nations. These are Islamic countries, hijab-wearing countries. I'm really curious to know what your views are on this.
Well, I'm grateful that that some of these Gulf countries are supporting the United States right now in this conflict with Iran. But at the end of the day, we can't give excuses to Muslim countries that are Sharia adherent and that are state sponsors of terrorism themselves. I mean, Qatar, yes, we do have a military base. The United States does have a military base in Qatar, but we can't ignore the fact that after October 7th, Qatar was hosting, and still to this day, allowing for the leaders of Hamas to live in these very luxurious penthouses in Doha, providing a safe harbor to leaders of the Taliban. And at the end of the day, we can't whitewash what the Islamic ideology teaches. This is a death cult, in my opinion. And I know that some people may take offense to what I'm saying, and there are over 204 million Muslims who live here in India, but I believe that Islam is a cancer on the world. The biggest threat facing our country, the United States of America, and the biggest threat facing the world is Islam, the Islamic Caliphate. These people...
Laura, you're saying cancer Islam is cancer to the world. I just would want to know, and I'd like you to inform our audiences here as well. What data research informs your view that Islamic terror is the biggest threat to America? And allow me to give you just a slice of data, and it's coming from your own country. This is the University of Maryland Global Terrorism Database and the US State Department database itself. And I'm talking about the last decade, 10 years, where gun violence in your country, which is primarily white, kills 428 times more in America than terrorism. And I'm not talking about terrorism of Islamic terrorism and all forms of terrorism.
I don't agree with their assessments and I don't agree with their statistics, and we can't ignore it. Look, under the Obama administration and also under the Biden administration, we know that they manipulated statistics. Obama gave directives to the intel agencies and the FBI to not use the phrase Islamic terrorism because, well, his name is Barack Hussein Obama. He was very sympathetic to all of these Muslims, allowing them into the White House, allowed for Islamic immigration into our country, flooded red states with Muslim immigrants who are now committing terrible crimes, refusing to assimilate. Much of what's happening in Europe is now happening in the United States. And so I've been very critical, even under the Trump administration, of the FBI and the current DOJ and their refusal to call things acts of Islamic terror. We saw this 2 weeks ago where a terrorist, he was a naturalized citizen from Africa, walked into a bar in Austin, Texas, wearing a shirt that said "Property of Allah," and then underneath that shirt, he was wearing an Iranian flag T-shirt, and he shot 15 people, and he killed 3 of them. And the FBI didn't call it Islamic terrorism. They also didn't call it Islamic terrorism when an Afghani who was brought to our country by Joe Biden during the last administration, opened fire on 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., killing one of them. But if somebody walks into a building and they say Baruch Hashem, right, no one's going to say anything. If somebody walks into a building and they say praise Jesus, nobody's going to say anything. But I can guarantee you that if somebody walked into this room right now and they screamed Allahu Akbar, we would all hit the deck. We would all hit the deck, and it's important for our law enforcement agencies and the President of the United States, the FBI director, and all elected officials in America to speak truth about Islam. There's only one religious group, I don't even call it a religion, truly, I call it a political ideology that is focused on eradicating non-believers. And that is a threat. That is the biggest threat. Having people like that in your country who refuse to assimilate, that is a threat.
Those who misuse religion, whichever, and spread terror, you call them out. But why call out the entire religion? Because I can tell you from example in India, in this war on terror, you have people of all faiths who are fighting and fighting so well, and I know them. I know a large number of them personally. They may follow a different faith, they may follow a different religion, but they're fighting the same terror, whether it comes from Pakistan or it comes from any other hue.
Well, all you have to do is read the Quran. This is not me translating. This is literally what you read in the Quran. When they pray 5 times a day, they are praying to eradicate non-Muslims. You can pick up a Quran and read it yourself, and it explicitly calls for the eradication of non-Muslims. It calls for the subjugation of non-Muslims, and we have to calculate that threat into our national security, not just in the United States. You see the way that Israel has also positioned themselves, and India as well, in addressing this threat of Islamic terror.
Well,
And if we ignore it,
but when you interpret with what you say, the interpretation of Islam, I think would be incorrect, because neither you follow the religion, neither us here, to suggest that when you pray 5 times a day, you're praying to eradicate non-Muslims. I think it's incorrect to say that, but having,
well, if you look at their prayers,
question.
if we translate their prayers, I think that you would find that in a lot of these mosques, and we've seen it especially in the aftermath of the bombings in Iran, you have these imams in mosques, not just in Europe, but also in the United States of America, openly issuing fatwas, talking about how we need to wage jihad against all non-Muslims. So what am I supposed to think when we're seeing imams in the United States of America who immigrated to our country, and you're looking at all of these Islamic leaders around the world?
Go after those elements. Anybody who violates the law of the land, go after those elements, and nobody would, criticize that. However, look at this war on terror that's being fought even right now. Countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like the United Arab Emirates, I mean, they are shedding both.
Guys. We need to call out India today's dualism and the hypocrisy. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? On what basis? I mean, I don't understand, guys. Are they trying to whitewash the terrorism in India also?
Blood and treasure, their security, their peace of mind, all of that is being impacted due to this war that's being waged against Iran, and they're both Muslim countries.
Yes, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the strategic partnership and their support of President Trump's combat missions in Iran. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to whitewash the brutality and the barbarism of Islam and an ideology that is responsible for the death of millions of Hindus, millions of Christians, and advocates for the eradication of the 15 million Jews left on this planet.
I hear you, Laura, when you speak of the fatwas, but that's a geopolitical fallout as well of an action that was taken by your country. I'm not in any which way saying it's all right. But when you talk about brutalities, and I'll ask, maybe in the next 10 seconds, we can put out the brutalities that Iranians have faced. 160 young kids, 160 young girls were killed in a missile strike by your country, which, Laura, you have called that the Iranians use them as shield. Even your country, your president, your secretary of war has said it needs to be investigated.
Well, it needs to be investigated, but if you look at photos and footage from the moment that the missile attack took place, you can clearly see the trajectory of the missile, and it was fired from Iran. And so, yes, there does need to be an investigation, but it does appear thus far from the photographic and video evidence that this was carried out by Iran.
So, what do you make
It was a faulty missile.
So that is under investigation, but even the Department of Defense and Secretary of War have indicated that there would be an...
Guys, let's have 2 minutes silence for those girls, because whatever the war should be, No innocent lives, be it ever any country, be it any army, be it any war. When you say a religious war, or when you say a war, it has to be between the armies of the nations. That's why we recruit the civilians from the army to go fight on behalf of the army, not on behalf of the politicians, but we have to recruit civilians in the army. We have to recruit the civilians from the army so that no civilian should die in a war. So I don't know what happened there. It's still under investigation. Fog of war still applies. But you're eliminating the leaderships. And things like this happening. Who shall we support? That's the question. It's still fog of war. But these guys have claims on both sides that no, the civilians are dying. Then what's the point of going on to the war? You should have a war in which only army takes part. That's my assessment of it. I don't wanna offend those army peoples and army enthusiasts how you should fight, but there is a reason to fight, I guess, and the reason should include no civilian should die. I don't know about your assessments or your military intelligence assessments or country's intelligence assessments. I mean, we can go to war with Pakistan anytime. Let's be sensitive about what's happening in the world. Let's not comment before investigation is completed. Let's not take the sides. Strait of Hormuz is still not open for the world, open for India. But for how long? And not open for world, how long? You eliminated the Iranian leadership successfully. Hats off. What about world leadership? Who is taking the world leadership right now? Who will pay for the inflation? Citizens. Who will pay for the war with life? It shouldn't be citizens. It shouldn't be army. It shouldn't be politicians. It shouldn't be human. It should be criminals only. Find the criminals, find the terrorists, execute them, or investigate them, or charge them. If an army can do that, then who can? A civilian, like any country's civilian, will do the justice. Or is it the army or the governments, the good governments, the world governments, America, India, or Israel, who will save the world?
Inquiry, the Iranians are very clear that this is a Patriot missile or an American missile that led to the death of 170 young girls.
Well, I'm not going to take the word of a regime that's chanting death to America. I'd prefer an active investigation as opposed to trusting the Iranians at their word.
So, what have your conversations with President Trump been like, especially one on the war on terror? And you hold a very strong view about women wearing hijab, for example, being a part of TSA or being in aviation security, or people like Rashida Talib and Ilhan Omar being political leaders. Where do both of you stand on that? Where do you stand on that?
Well, I personally am very outspoken in my belief that I think that it should be illegal in the United States for Muslims to hold office. I don't think that you can take your oath on the Quran and also be a loyal representative to the United States of America. You should take your oath of office on the United States Constitution, and we already know that Islam as an ideology is completely incompatible, not just with Western values, but also American values. And if you're taking your oath on the Quran, you're pledging your allegiance to Sharia law, which believes that it is supreme to the United States Constitution. So that is a big problem. And you see that when you have Muslims serving in office in the United States, whether it's Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or Keith Ellison or Zoran Mamdani, who is now the first Muslim mayor of New York City, what do? They put Islam front and center in everything that they do, right? They changed our rules. We had a long-standing rule in the United States Congress of no head coverings, and now you have hijabs in Congress. They openly support Hamas. They openly support the Muslim Brotherhood. Ilhan Omar has advocated for members of ISIS in her district in Minnesota, which is the #1 ISIS recruitment location in our entire country. And Zoran Mamdani is campaigning with co-conspirators in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So how is this good for our country?
Okay, I get it. But most people who are on social media are aware of this findings. You guys are fighting for a vote. Everyone is fighting for votes in politics. So, either you are enlightening people with this information and you are not taking any actions. Zoran Mamdani is still in here. There are bombs being hurled towards police of the New York. Is that the American dream? What they've been talking about? What kind of rubbish is this? You're allowing the mayor's election just like Indian Kashmir's elections or any kind of Indian elections. But inaction towards it is same as being a civilian. You're acting as a civilian in a government. It's the civilians who should be talking about all this. But instead of, we have got governments talking about this even after being in power. And mostly the argument should be, we got more votes. We need more votes. Who is going to do that? Civilians? Politicians? All the country's army should get you the votes now. What's next? What's next? I'm asking civilians of these countries, what's next? Let's continue, guys.
Country.
But Laura, you know, the campaign that you've built on Muslim leaders, you call yourself, yourself a proud Islamophobic, but it's not just limited to Muslim leaders. I'll give you an example. There are congressmen, congresswomen of Indian origin that you post on social media about criticizing their work, and you hashtag it with "Go Back to India." They're as American as you are, Laura.
Excuse me?
They're as American as you are, Laura. When you speak of congressmen and congresswomen, and for our audience, those are lawmakers in America, you criticize them, which you should, because that's your right as an American, but your hashtag follows with "Go Back to India." They're as American as you.
Well, with that congressman in particular, right, he barely speaks English. I think it's a problem. I think that if you're going to be a representative in the United States of America, you need to assimilate. And I think that we need to have a conversation about whether it's acceptable or not for foreign-born individuals to hold office in our country. We have a problem with dual loyalty. And are you truly a representative of the United States of America if you are putting foreign countries first? And this isn't unique to Sri Thanadar from India. There are multiple members of Congress that were not born in this country. You look at Ilhan Omar in particular. There was a video clip of Ilhan Omar that recently surfaced of her wearing a hijab, speaking in her native dialect from Somalia. And she said that she is a representative for Somalia, not for the United States of America, but she's there to put the Somalis first, to put the Muslims first. How does that support American values? How does that support American interests? How does that support President Trump? And how does that benefit the American people? It doesn't. It doesn't benefit anybody.
Is the American dream only white?
No, the American dream isn't only white, but the United States of America is a majority white Christian country, and I say this as a Jewish woman. And we are rapidly watching demographics become our destiny. Your demographics are your destiny at the end of the day. And just like people in India want to maintain their heritage and their culture, you certainly don't want to be conquered. You don't want to be taken over. You don't want to be replaced. People in America also don't want our culture and our history and our nation to be conquered and replaced. And I think that it's important for people of all cultures and all backgrounds, wherever you're from, you should be advocating for your interests. You're in India, you advocate for India first. I'm an American, I advocate for America first, and I believe that America should remain a majority white Christian country.
So, you know, I host a show called India First. You believe in America first.
अगर ये वीडियो आपको इस मुबारक महीने में दिखाई दे रहा है तो समझ
Do you see a common meeting ground, you know, your conversations with President Trump regarding Prime Minister Narendra Modi? You just, read out a portion of your conversation with President Trump. Shall the twain meet? So, for example, you're sitting exactly where Ambassador Sergio Gore was sitting yesterday, and he spoke of how India and America are working close on a critical minerals deal or a trade deal. But some of the comments that come from America are so harsh that they're very unpalatable.
Right.
So where is that common meeting ground?
Well, look, I think that the strategic partnership that the United States has with India and also with Israel is one of the strongest, if not the strongest partnership in the world. And it's something that I value, I treasure, and I think that more Americans are going to come to appreciate over time. But look, a lot of animosity is felt by the American people as it pertains to the H-1B visa program. When President Trump first campaigned for office, when he was running for president in 2015 and 2016, he said that we need to end the H-1B visa program and the abuses with the H-1B visa program. He's on video saying this. And when you have American students, education here in India is free. Okay? In the United States of America, you have to pay $60,000, $70,000 to $80,000 a year just to get a degree in the United States, depending on where you go to school. So how do you think Americans feel, young Americans feel, when these big tech social media companies tell them, you're not the best and brightest. We have to import people from China and India to fulfill these jobs, and we don't care if you spent $120,000 and went into debt for the rest of your life trying to get an education. I think that you would see a lot of that resentment and some of those negative, harsh comments decrease if we could have a respectful conversation about American immigration policy and also labor laws and ways that we can work together.
First of all, guys, let's not be harsh to the Americans, white Americans. Especially, why I'm speaking that not because of white supremacy or any kind of North Indian supremacy or nor any kind of supremacy. I'm talking about it because we've recently deported more than 5,000 illegals. Just because we felt it was a burden on our economy. So don't you think that America would have a right to do the same? Let's be real, guys. Let's be real about it, guys. There is nothing to be like, hey, these people are racist more than me, we should be racist more. Like there's a race to be a racist. Hell no. It's a race to be not poor. These people in America feel poor. And they got rejected, or when they felt Indian or Chinese or any Muslim countries, people are much more valuable than their own people or own family people with whose taxes whole America runs.
United States of America and India in combating the exploitation of the H-1B visa program, because we need to give jobs to Americans as well. We can't allow, especially in the age of the AI revolution, where we're going to see massive unemployment as a result of AI being ushered in.
So
I think it's important
because AI is also an enabler, but that's another debate. As far as H-1B visas are concerned, one, highly skilled labor or those jobs that cannot be fulfilled by the Americans, those are jobs that are coming in, and that benefits American companies too. They make money, but those harsh comments, some of those comments that came from you, or that anti-India criticism, or that feeling against India, doesn't that create bad blood between the two people who've otherwise had a great relationship over decades?
I think what creates bad blood is a sense of entitlement, and disrespect towards American students and American people who have worked very hard and are now suffering unemployment. They're suffering unemployment, and they're being told by executives of companies that they've aspired to work for their entire lives that they are not the best and brightest. And that's the terminology that is used, the best and brightest.
I think, guys, we in India, before this, critical mineral energy crisis or something like that, we need a basic human tendency analysis before all this politics and mainstream media shit they've been talking about. When Americans are talking shit about these things, particular MAGA Americans, not the Democrats, I'm not talking about Democrats. Democrats would want to kill Indians, I guess. Basically, Magyans are not that thirsty, I guess. They are just a classic criticism of Indians. Because majority of Indians would be supporting the Democrats in USA, particularly because they don't have a white American background defaultly. And the propaganda is that these MAGA peoples are the ultimate go back people. They would not want Indian at all. But I don't think that is the case. Because Kash Patel is the FBI director. Tulsi Gabbard is an NSA director, just like NSA Ajit Doval. आप लोग समझ रहे हो guys? मैं क्या कहना चाह रहा हूँ? कि they don't hate Indians. They are just presenting a criticism, just as we represent a criticism to the governments of our India. BJP, Congress, उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. But just a criticism what we talk about. और जो criticism आज तक या इंडिया टुडे दिखाता है, या वो ड्यूअलिज्म आज तक जो ड्यूअलिज्म हमें दिखा रहा है अभी, कि वो इस्लामिक टेररिज्म को तो मना ही कर रहे हैं. हाँ, they are denying it right now. There exists a Islamic terrorism involved. That is dualism. 24 hours का इन लोग का कवरेज वो रहता है. और लाहौरा लूमर के साथ ये लोग अलग टाइप का लिबरल बन रहे हैं यार. मतलब तुम्हारी खुद की कंट्री में साल में पिछले 2 साल में टेररिस्ट अटैक हो गए हैं पाकिस्तान से, और वो बंदी बोल रही है कि पाकिस्तान ऐसा है. वो हमें सिखा रही है. लेकिन इन बंदों को, एंकरों को कोई फर्क नहीं. इनको अपनी बढ़स निकालनी है. अरे नहीं, अभी तो राजदीप सरदेसाई साहब का बाकी है बढ़स, वो देखना पड़ेगा हमें. और सो आई अंडरस्टैंड कि वो क्रिटिसिज्म जो मांगा का क्रिटिसिज्म है, दैट इज नॉट अ डेडली क्रिटिसिज्म, दैट इज अ फ्रेंडली क्रिटिसिज्म. People need to understand, people of India need to understand in this war time कि आप अमेरिकन की नहीं सुनोगे तो क्या पाकिस्तानी की सुनोगे? आप एक इजरायली की नहीं सुनोगे तो क्या पाकिस्तानी की सुनोगे? और आप पाकिस्तानी की नहीं सुनोगे तो क्या रजदीप सरदेसाई की सुनोगे? और रजदीप सरदेसाई की नहीं सुनोगे तो क्या राहुल गांधी की सुनोगे आप लोग? द पॉइंट ये लोग जिस टाइम पे आज तक और इंडिया टुडे आर डिबेटिंग अगेंस्ट द लॉरा लूमर, आई कैंट अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट देयर इंटरेस्ट आर. Can't understand what they stand for. Only people can understand this क्योंकि अगर क्रिटिसिज्म मैं समझता हूँ लोग नहीं देते मान रखे, तब तक मुझे लगता था लॉरा लूमर जैसे लोगों को इंडियन सीरियस नहीं लेते, क्योंकि खुद अमेरिका में लोग ज़ोहरान ममदानी जैसे लोगों को सीरियस लेते हैं। ना कि ट्रंप जैसे लोगों को, कि ना कि लॉरा लूमर जैसे लोगों को। वी आर प्राउड कि मोदी जी जैसे लोगों को हम जैसे लोग आज भी सीरियस लेते हैं और उनको पावर में रख सकते हैं।
Needs to be imported. And we have intelligent people, we have smart people, we have talented people in the United States of America who can also take those jobs. And I truly believe that if we're able to have a cordial debate and have understanding from the government of India and the people of India that, you know, the American people just want to have employment as well, and they want our labor laws to not be exploited. They want our immigration laws to be enforced and not exploited by companies that want to import cheap labor. I think that you would see a rapid decrease in some of those harsh comments online.
Laura, can we address the elephant in the room? First up, would you want some water or are you carrying your own?
Oh, I think I'm fine. Yeah.
You're good? Okay,
yeah.
Great. So there have been certain tweets, Laura, which, because you're in India right now, and you know what you've done, and let me say this, it's a feat, because by the virtue of those tweets, you've done the impossible. You've got the left in India and the right in India come together and being uncomfortable with those tweets. So in that way, you know, there's a lot to thank you, because that rarely ever happens in India.
Wow.
But they've come together in the criticism, Laura, of some of your tweets earlier. You've deleted most of them. On what you perceive is your image of India and Indians. Do you regret it? Because you deleted them, so that's why I ask you.
Well, Twitter deleted some of them. I had no choice but to delete some of them because Twitter actually locked my account, believe it or not. In the aftermath of that, they actually, you know, restricted my account in December. This is what I'll say. I'm not going to apologize for my comments about the H-1B visa program, because my job is to speak for Americans and to stand up for American interests. And our immigration laws have been exploited and abused, and our labor laws have also been exploited and abused. And I'm going to continue being an advocate and a fighter for American workers who are struggling to find employment because they're told they're not the best and the brightest in a field, right, in Silicon Valley and tech that is dominated by over 70% imported foreign labor, mostly from China and India. What I will say is that I shouldn't have said some of the things that I said in the other tweets, not about H-1B, and I apologize.
At least, guys, she's sorry about it. Let's appreciate that much in this time, and let's not change our course of alliance. We have an alliance to adhere here with Americans, and not for Indian government, not for US government, not for Trump, but for humanity, because we have to solve this issue. And especially Iran is not going to be the savior of the world at this time. It has to be either Israel or America or India or maybe Russia or China. No one else from this country needs to save the world. It's either them or the civilians. These politicians can't, civilians will be happy to.
Apologize if my remarks offended people. And I'm here in India this week, and I'm spending several days in India where I'm going to be, traveling the country. I'm very excited to be here. Everybody's been, very friendly. I'm very happy to be able to experience India myself. But I will say I don't have hatred in my heart for India or Hindu people. I'm an advocate for Hindus. I speak out against the brutality of Islam that has persecuted millions of Hindus around the world. And I don't come from a place of hatred. My comments come from a place of love for my people and my country.
Where do you see India-US relations go from this place? And personally, I believe you have some good news to share even on the personal front. I believe you plan to travel to different parts of the country now?
Yeah, I actually brought my fiance with me. I just recently got engaged, so I'm getting married. And I thought, wow, it would be really great to do my engagement photos at the Taj Mahal. So I'm going to do some photos at the Taj Mahal for my engagement. It'll be exciting.
Well, congratulations, Laura, on that, on your
Thank
engagement.
you.
And because I am a journalist, so allow me to paraphrase. So you correctly, with what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you are, where your stand on H-1B visas are, and you don't apologize, you're right, but for certain tweets which hurt the sentiment of the Indian community, you wish you hadn't said those.
Yes, I don't apologize for my tweets about H-1B because I do believe that it was very disrespectful the way that these big tech social media executives who have predominantly always been Democrat, then they wrote these big checks to President Trump and his administration thinking that they were going to be able to buy influence and come into the Republican Party and the MAGA movement, and that we were going to forget their support for open borders policies and their support for importing labor and their disrespect of the MAGA conservative base. I'm not apologizing for that, but the other comments, yes, I should not have said them, and I hope that people will be able to judge me by the advocate that I've always shown myself to be for Hindu people.
Because India is a really warm country.
Yes.
And they're going to embrace you. You're going to Taj Mahal. You're going to have a fabulous time. They're going to love you and your fiancé because that's what we do. We have a lot of love.
Yes,
to
and
forgive as well.
I've seen that. I've felt a lot of love here in India, and I look forward. I hope to be able to come back to India in the future as well for future conferences and to be a part of this expanding alliance between the United States and India and Israel, which my speech is about. So
absolutely. India's culture is all about togetherness.
Yes.
To move together. Sangachadvam, samvadadvam, samvo manasi janatam is like move together as people together to grow together. For joining us here on this India Today special broadcast, Laura Loomer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Laura. And I hope you have a great stay ahead in India.
You made a statement. If Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry and speeches will be facilitated via a call center. You then went on to say our country was built by white Europeans, not third world invaders from India. I think you should do more than just express regret. From what I can see, you're brazenly racist and Islamophobic. And I'm sorry to say that we have Atiti Devo Bhava in this country where we welcome all, but your comments smack of anti-Indianism.
To make
We have Atiti Devo Bhava in this country where we welcome all, but your comments smack of anti-Indianism.
So finally, India Today omitted this part. I didn't know about it. We'll have to see another video.
Used to make people fearful of speaking out about their own survival. And a phobia, sir, is defined as an irrational fear. And it is not irrational to fear an ideology that explicitly calls for the killing of non-Muslims. And so respectfully, I came to India to speak to people about how I'm using my voice and using my platform and using my influence in America to speak out about this threat that really wants to eradicate you, right? Everybody who is not a Muslim should really honestly be fearful of this ideology that explicitly calls for their removal from this planet, their eradication. And so if you have a sense of survival, I think that it's perfectly normal to be fearful of Islam.
With regards
to my comment about Kamala Harris, look, I think that she's actually shown great disrespect to the Indian people and also to her Indian heritage. This is a woman who campaigned, and I made my...
Guys, I don't know what Kamala did good for the Indian community, but she once was a black community black belt. So either she should clarify now. Was she in good faith an Indian, or was she just for power?
Comments to mock her, really, because how do you go around saying that you are, the first Indian senator? She used her Indian heritage her entire life to get elected to office and campaign, and then as soon as she started running for president, she ignores her Indian heritage and says, "Oh, I'm black." Are you black or are you Indian? What is it? Are you Indian or are you black? And even President Trump called her out for this during the campaign trail. So I would say that maybe you found offense to my remarks, but if anything, my comments were actually pro-Indian. I was mocking the fact that she was openly rejecting her Indian culture and her background to pander to the black community. And in the end, it failed because she lost, thank God, because President Trump is the greatest president we've ever had.
Well, Laura Loomer, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
And, I'm glad you took all our questions, but like I said, Indians have a big heart, even to forgive, and I think the more you travel in the country, the more, you will be embraced. But
yes.
I hope you...
Well, I'm impressed, and like I said, I came here to answer questions, and if I hated India and I hated Indians, I wouldn't come to India, and I am happy.
Nothing too obvious why she praised Trump. But she praised Trump to fucking disgrace that guy. Do you understand what she's doing? If you can't, then I don't know what critical thinking can you do. And to be honest, कमेंट में लिखो guys, did Trump did good thing or bad thing waging war against Iran, or did Iran attack America first? आप कमेंट में लिखो guys, it's still fog of war applies.
Happy to have conversations and answer every single question. So even though you think I'm a racist, I still want to thank you for your question. And I'm happy to answer all questions.
Well, thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
The interview question that decides everything. What AI tools do you use? If you say chat GPT, you're done.
Ladies and gentlemen, raise a warm applause as I call upon Rajesh Sharma, Regional Head North and East, UTI Mutual Fund, to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to you.
Thank you.
All right, with that session,
Make it my...
ladies and gentlemen, quite a snapshot for thinking in the White House. You agree, you disagree, but this is a window to the key inputs going into White House and what may shape their thinking. Laura has a small speech for us. She's prepared that. We're going to give her the dais.
Well, thank you. I prepared these remarks and wanted to deliver the speech actually before the panel, but happy to deliver them now as well. So again, thank you so much to India Today for inviting me to speak to all of you today here at the Conclave Conference. And as you know, my name is Laura Loomer. I'm an American journalist and a loyal ally to President Trump. I'm thrilled, really, to be here and to speak with you, despite some criticism I received on stage about an urgent and pressing matter that has become even more relevant in the last 2 weeks. And we spoke about this during the panel, but I prepared this speech because really, I didn't travel 30 hours, just to have a discussion. I really want to leave these lasting remarks with you so that you understand me as a person and understand the fight that I'm in to eradicate this threat of Islamic terrorism from our planet, and more specifically, how the Trump administration is working to combat Islamic terrorism in the United States and abroad. I've had the privilege of watching President Trump in person, working tirelessly on the front lines to bolster America's foreign policy and national security. I've seen firsthand how he cuts through the bureaucracy and demands results and builds alliances around the world that deliver victories. And today I'm honored to address you here in India, a nation that President Trump himself has admired for its resilience and strategic importance, to deliver a message straight from the heart of the administration. And that, of course, was death to Islamic terrorism, the Trump approach. Let's be clear, Islamic terrorism is not just a threat. It truly is a cancer that has metastasized across the globe, fueled by an Islamic ideology that respects no borders, no lives, and no civilizations. In India, you especially have borne the brunt of this evil for far too long. Hindus have been systematically targeted and murdered by Muslim terrorists driven by their jihadist fervor, from the medieval invasions that razed temples and slaughtered innocents to the blood-soaked partition of 1947, where millions of Hindus perished in religiously motivated massacres. Even in recent times, the horror continues. We see this in the 2008 Mumbai attacks by Pakistani-based Lashkar-e-Taiba that killed 166, including Hindus at prayer, the Pulwama bombing in 2019 that claimed the lives of 40 Indian security personnel, and just last year, in 2025, the renewed assaults in Kashmir, where Jaish-e-Mohammed militants murdered a dozen of Hindu pilgrims in a brazen ambush. And most recently here in New Delhi, on November 10th, 2025, a car exploded near the Red Fort, killing at least 15 innocent people and injuring more than 20 others. According to the Delhi police, the explosion was a suicide bombing by Pakistani terrorists, and yet another reminder that the biggest export out of Pakistan is Islamic terrorism, not textiles, like they would like you to believe. These are not anomalies. They're a grim reality of a barbaric third world ideology that has claimed countless American and Indian lives, displacing communities and sowing division all around the world wherever Islamic terror spreads. But India does not stand alone. The United States, under President Donald Trump, recognizes this shared enemy, as does Israel, our unbreakable ally in the Middle East. We've all suffered together. America suffered on 9/11 when al-Qaeda Islamic terrorists murdered nearly 3,000 Americans, and Israel daily faces the threat of Islamic terrorists with rockets from Hamas and Hezbollah. And, of course, how can we forget the October 7th, 2023 massacre, which is still fresh in memory, where over 1,200 innocent people were slaughtered in the name of Islamic Jihad. We just saw Prime Minister Modi travel to Israel, where he met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and condemned the October 7th Islamic terror attacks and vowed, as Prime Minister of India, to stand with the Israeli people in the fight against Islamic terrorism. These attacks that we see in the United States, we just had 3 Islamic terrorists on Thursday of this week alone in the United States. These attacks are linked by the same poisonous thread: Iranian funding, Pakistani safe havens, and a global network of Islamists who target Hindus, Jews, Christians, and freedom-loving people everywhere around the world. Everybody is a target to Islamic terrorists. President Trump, who I've spoken to about these matters, has a no-nonsense approach. Hit the terrorists hard, hit them first, and build coalitions that choke off their lifelines. In his first term, President Trump obliterated ISIS caliphate. He authorized the raid that killed ISIS leader al-Baghdadi, and he took out Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general and the inventor of the roadside bomb who has orchestrated terrorism against us all. Now, in his second term, as we can currently see now with the strikes in Iran, President Trump has escalated with precision and even more resolve. Most recently, with Operation Midnight Hammer, our 2025 strikes that dismantled key Iranian nuclear and terrorism facilities, and Operation Epic Fury earlier this year, which neutralized the Ayatollah in Iran and crippled the Iranian regime's ability to continue exporting jihad. And the world witnessed President Trump's commitment to eradicating Islamic terrorism even more when he ordered airstrikes on ISIS terrorists in Nigeria who were persecuting Christians. This morning, President Trump took to Truth Social to announce that he authorized the bombing of every single military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karg Island. And he vowed to continue bombing Iran unless the terrorist leaders in Iran lay down their arms and stop threatening the world. You see, President Trump is not just fighting for the interests of the American people. He's fighting to protect all people of the world, all around the world, from this threat of Islamic terrorism. And when I spoke to him this morning, he reassured me that he's even more committed than ever before in combating this threat of global Islamic terrorism. During his second term, President Trump also ramped up drone campaigns against ISIS remnants in Syria and Africa, imposing crippling sanctions on terror sponsors. And we've seen with the Trump administration under President Trump, Marco Rubio at the State Department, and Scott Bessent at the United States Treasury that they have issued crippling sanctions on these terror sponsors, and they've even designated more radical Islamic groups like elements within the Muslim Brotherhood, terrorist organizations that have since had their funding streams cut dry by the Trump administration. This isn't a bluster. Instead, it's a strategy, and it's central to the ironclad alliance between the United States, India, and Israel, a trifecta of power that President Trump himself has personally championed. I have advised President Trump and other members of his cabinet on the importance of deporting Islamic immigrants from America, and I can confidently say that President Trump is committed to protecting religious liberties for Americans who have been targeted by Islamists and protecting the religious liberties of all freedom-loving people around the world who have found themselves persecuted by a people who follow an ideology that doesn't understand the importance and the meaning of what it truly means to coexist. This is a threat to Hindus in India, the most populated country in the world. They're forced to deal with this threat and this reality of Islamic jihad on a daily basis, as India is inhabited by over 204 Muslims out of India's population of 1.4 billion people. So not only is President Trump countering terrorism, but he's also committed to combating Chinese aggression, which can be seen through the alliance between the Quad nations of India, the United States, Japan, and Australia, who participate in joint exercise in Malabar 2025, where U.S. and Indian forces simulated counter-terror ops so they could work together more strategically to combat future acts of Islamic terrorism around the world. The U.S.-India Comprehensive Global and Strategic Partnership, upgraded under President Trump, now includes real-time intelligence between these countries that thwarted 2 different Islamic terror plots against Delhi and Tel Aviv in the last year alone. The alliance between the United States, India, and Israel is truly the best trifecta. Israel brings its cutting-edge technology. Just think about the Iron Dome technology and the adaptations it has for borders and the cyber tools that we've integrated with the help of Israel to hack terrorist communications to make our world a safer place. Prime Minister Modi's bold moves, like the abrogation of Article 370 to secure Kashmir, align perfectly with President Trump's vision. And I've seen President Trump praise Modi as a tough fighter against terrorism. And again, as a reminder, during my conversation with the president right before I gave my speech today on the phone, he once again doubled down and said that Modi is a true friend, a great friend, and somebody who he greatly respects. Without this strong alliance between the United States and Israel and India we would be impotent. We would be reactive, we would be divided, and we would be watching Islamic terrorists regroup in Afghanistan's Taliban, Afghanistan havens, or Iran's proxy armies. Past administration's weakness allowed ISIS to rise. We saw under the Obama administration, ISIS is now present in all 50 states in the United States of America. We saw the way that Barack Hussein Obama allowed for Iran to flourish, delivering them pallets of cash, caving to their ransom demands. We are not supposed to negotiate with terrorists. President Trump's approach rejects all of that. We impose maximum pressure, economic isolation, military dominance, and diplomatic isolation of enablers of Islamic terrorism like Pakistan. Just last week, a Pakistani man named Asif Merchant with ties to Iran was found guilty of plotting to assassinate President Trump at the request of Iran. Additionally, the world watched in horror 2 weeks ago as Pakistani terrorists stormed the U.S. consulates in Pakistan with guns in an effort to murder the American diplomats following the U.S. drone strike on the supreme leader of Iran. Together, our nations form a strategic bulwark. America's global reach, India's demographic and economic might, Israel's innovation in asymmetrical warfare, and ensuring these Islamic terrorists face coordinated, overwhelming force and opposition. I truly believe that this is our biggest fight ahead. As Americans, as Indians, and as Israelis, the threat of Islamic terrorism, and our preservation as non-Muslims and our preservation as freedom-loving people will truly depend on the strength of our alliances between these three countries to combat this threat of Islamic terrorism. Without the strong leadership of President Trump, Narendra Modi, and Bibi Netanyahu, I truly believe that the world would be more susceptible to Islamic militants who want to kill in the name of Islam. And I'm here today, and I travel the country, and I do the work that I do because I am committed to helping make sure that that doesn't happen. And being here today in India, and I again want to thank India today for inviting me here, has allowed me to further spread my message with the great nation of India and the amazing people of India so that they can better understand why I make the comments that I make, why I say the things that I say, and why I'm so passionate about this threat of Islamic terrorism. To my Indian friends, as one of President Trump's most outspoken loyalists, I urge you, embrace this partnership between the United States, Israel, and India fully. Your Hindu heritage, scarred by centuries of Islamic aggression, demands it. Honor the victims, the murdered Hindus in Kashmir, the fallen in Mumbai, and all future victims of Islamic terrorism by standing with President Trump and the American people to eradicate our mutual enemy, the threat of Islamic terror. In President Trump's words, which I've heard him say many times, together we will win bigly. Death to Islamic terrorism, and long live the U.S.
If you're using AI in your workflow, then you might be facing these three major challenges. First,
win bigly. Death to Islamic terrorism, and long live the U.S.
गाइस, तो आप लोग ने देखा कि कट ऑफ द लॉन्ग लिव यूएस इंडिया रिलेशनशिप presented by India Today.